What's in it for God that we do mitzvahs, Rabbi Shachat?
What's in it for God that we do mitzvahs? I guess it's the same principle. I mean, I've heard it said, maybe in this forum and other forums, that God needs our mitzvahs and it gives God pleasure and all that kind of stuff.
If there's one sentence that needs to be publicized and shouted from the rooftops to change the world, it's this sentence. The Eibishter himself, in his full essence, desperately needs the mitzvah.
I don't buy into that, because Moses himself says very categorically in the Torah, "Im tzedakta matitin lo," if you do righteousness, what are you doing for him? You're not doing him any favors. V'rabu p'she'echa matasala, and again, if you sin, you think you're really offending him, you can analyze that a little bit on a Hasidic level, but essentially when you do mitzvahs, it's the same principle. It's about connection to God. You do the mitzvah as a means of bringing yourself closer to God. You need to put on the tefillin, not because God needs you to put on the tefillin, but because you need to, in order to bind your mind and your heart towards divinity. You need to light Shabbat candles so that you come to the appreciation of how you have your greater responsibility of illuminating the outside world. Mitzvahs are more for you and your own soul benefit than they are for God.
Is it heretical to believe, say, or teach that God needs us? Because I've seen classes online that say yes.
Yeah.
Are both opinions valid, or is only one right?
This is the great controversy about Rabbi Manis Friedman, who is extremely popular Chabad speaker. In fact, the advertisement goes, the most popular rabbi on the internet. I feel cheated, but don't worry, I'm not even near his numbers.
So he would never have missed if he didn't create the world. So why did he do it? It's a full-time job. It's a lot of people, a lot of problems, a lot of prayers to listen to, a lot of things to take care of and to help. That's not a problem for him. He's outside of time, so it all happens simultaneously and it takes no effort. He's the infinite omnipotent one. But from our perspective, it is more than a full-time job. So why do it? Take the easy way out. He was good. He's Ek Asher Eke. He doesn't need a world with 8 billion people in it. Why do it? Why bother? So the Mekubalim explain, you know why God created the world? Because he wanted, okay, that's a problem already. He's infinite, he doesn't want, but he wanted, needed, it's also a problem, he doesn't need. Although, again, we have certain, my chevra and the Shtibel minion, we have this conversation weekly. Does Hashem have needs or not? They send me Chabad propaganda every week to try to bolster their opinion. I'm just joking, I'm calling it that, but I love it. The material and does Hashem have needs? Can we understand the notion that Hashem would have a need? So you know what his need was? He wanted to give good. He wanted to do good.
Manis Friedman says many times that God needs us, and he's in many videos, it's like we could call it his like go-to saying. It's a big idea that he wants to emphasize a lot. We want to understand what's his motivation. First of all, is he correct? Is he allowed to say such a thing? And even if it's a kosher idea, is it an idea that we should emphasize so much and turn into one of the Ikrei Emunah?
I don't know if you realize this, but you've created a commotion online because you said a few simple words. 3 words. God needs us.
More than we need him. The message that God needs us more than we need him, I think that's what separates Judaism from the rest of philosophy, religion, Narishkeit, business. That's what the Torah is trying to tell you.
Why? How do you see that?
Vayedet Hashem al Har Sinai. God came down to talk to you.
Where is your proof? Give me proof here.
The proof
You're making a very big statement here.
Yes.
Okay.
The proof is that he initiates everything.
To help us,
the world.
Show us what to do, in order for us to learn what to do.
Why does he need to teach us what to do? We are serving him because his need is more real than ours. So why should you be mavatal your rotzen for his rotzen? Because his rotzen is more intense, more real, more necessary than mine.
So you're saying that you're doing God a favor when you serve him, basically.
Absolutely.
It's a big line, you know that, right?
Yes. And without...
Rabbi Friedman, being Mechadesh, we're coming up with this completely original thing. Nobody says, well, let me tell you, you're doing God a favor when you serve him. He's not helping.
Once you get this idea, you find it everywhere. Everywhere. It's a very strange thing that I have to defend the Torah to the rabbis or to anybody. So let's understand exactly what we're dealing with here. There is the Creator who always was and always will be, eternal, all-powerful, infinite, Ein Sof, et cetera, et cetera. Then there's creation. What is the connection between them? The Creator really shouldn't create. Hashem, God, should be independent, perfect in himself, and there should be no creation. So the ultimate question, the first question is, what's a creation? Where did that come from? The answer is that there is Creator and there is creation. Where does Torah fit in? Is Torah part of creation or is Torah part of Creator? In other words, what do we believe about the Torah? So here's a good way to put it, Erev Pesach. The Torah says that we should eat matzah to remember the coming out of Mitzrayim. When did the mitzvah of eating matzah come into existence? After we came out of Mitzrayim? In other words, an event in creation, in the world, created this mitzvah. So the Eibishter is reacting to an event and made up a mitzvah in response. So he never really wanted you to eat matzah, but after Yetzias Mitzrayim happened, and he wants you to remember coming out of Mitzrayim, so he made a mitzvah to remember it. In other words, the mitzvah not only doesn't precede creation, it's a product of creation. It's a tulda. It's not even creation, it's lower than creation. That's horrible, wrong, and ridiculous. Torah is Torah's emes, the blueprint of creation, not the product of creation. Which means the Eibishter wants us to eat matzah. That's why there was Yetzias Mitzrayim. And that's why there was the botzeg that didn't rise. In other words, what happens in the world comes from Torah. Torah does not come from the world. Anybody disagree with that? Not possible. Not because of Exedas HaKosuf, not because it says in Torah, but because it doesn't make sense. The Torah is not a product of creation. The Torah is a product of the Creator. It is Him, not something He created. And that's what the Zohar means, Reisa v'kutshabrecha kol echad. You got to start with that. Not because it's Kabbalah, not because we're mystical, and not because it's simply the most sensible, the most logical, and the most real approach. There is the Eibishter. There is no creation. Nothing exists. Nothing exists. Okay, now what happened? There is nothing. Ein oid milvade. There is nothing. But he wants to do you a favor, so he... What? What are you jumping? What are you skipping? There is no favor. There's no one to do a favor. There is no chesed. There is no kindness. There is nothing. There's just him. Okay, what happened? And that's why don't bring me a pasuk and don't bring me a Maimer Chazal. We're talking about the Eibishter before there's a Chazal and before there's a pasuk. So is the Eibishter real because it says in Torah that he's real? That is not Emunah at all. So it's a very fundamental mistake that people are making. And it's tragic because our relationship with the Eibishter has become shallow, meaningless. So I'm not even going to defend the idea that the mitzvahs are him, not a creation that he made up at some point within time, within space, within creation. The mitzvah it has to be him because there was only him. So let's ask a very simple question. Was there a time, a level, a madrega, where the Eibishter did not want us to eat matzah? Was there any significance and purpose in Avram Avinu eating matzah on Pesach before there was a Yetzias Mitzrayim? Even Lot ate matzah on Pesach because they knew that there would someday be a mitzvah. What is that? You're making fun of the Torah? It's all a little product, a little game, a little trick. Does it say anywhere, does anyone of any authority say that the Eibishter doesn't need a mitzvah? There's no such statement. Wherever it says the Eibishter doesn't need us is not his mitzvahs. So let's be clear and let's make sense when we talk. Does the Eibishter need us? What do you mean by that? Does he need us to what? Explain your question. Does the Eibishter need mitzvahs? What kind of question is that? But where's the debate? What's the issue? The question that's being created is, are the mitzvahs real or were they made up as part of creation? Who asks a question like that? A Maimon? So of course, the mitzvahs are real. The question is only, where do we fit in? The mitzvahs are his mitzvahs. He needs matzah. Why am I eating matzah? Do I need it? Now that's a good question. Whether he needs it, it's his mitzvah. And it existed before there was a creation, including the creation of love and kindness and chesed and malchus. And before there was anything, there was already the mitzvah. So, did the Eibishter make up the mitzvah at some point, and now that he made it up, he's stuck with it? Chas v'shalom to even think like that. The mitzvah was not made up. It was not created out of nothing. That's Gashmis is created out of nothing. Not Torah. Torah is eternal. Torah always was, always will be. And that's what it means, so it may be wrong to say that the Eibishter needs the mitzvah, but it's so much more wrong to say that he doesn't. He doesn't need the mitzvah? Then what is a mitzvah? It's a tragic matzav that people have fallen into. And where is this coming from? Where is this coming from? Why this enjoyment? Why the pleasure of thinking he doesn't need? What's everybody so happy about? it's better if he doesn't need a mitzvah. So he doesn't need the mitzvah, but we should literally give our lives over and over for thousands of years to die for the mitzvah which he does not need. Making fun of everything. You're making a joke of the Eibishter, you're making a joke of the Torah, you're making a joke of Yidden. We've been fooled. We've been dying for nothing. So you might say, well, no, not for nothing. You'll go to Gan Eden. So now even Mesiras Nefesh is selfish? So even when I give up my life, it's only for a reward? When we are told that we're not supposed to do any mitzvah for the reward? So, I don't understand why I'm defending this. One of the ways of understanding the question of the Rasha says, we eat matzah to remember coming out of Mitzrayim. His question is, enough already. The reason is no longer relevant. It's been 3,000 years. How much gratitude, have to be grateful for. In other words, the Rasha is saying the reason for the mitzvah is the entire mitzvah. So when the reason is gone, the mitzvah should be gone. And that's what makes him a Rasha. Even though he comes to the Seder, and he's there every year, with his same question. So he comes to the Seder and he eats the matzah. Doesn't say he doesn't do it. No place does it say that he refuses to eat the matzah or the morer or the Salzwasser. So what makes him a Rasha? He's saying it's not relevant anymore. Because the reason given is no longer valid. Why is that a Rasha? Because, as we were saying, the mitzvah is not born out of a reason. The mitzvah is what the Eibishter always wanted. The Torah is the blueprint for creation. So because the Eibishter wanted matzah, all of that happened so that we would eat matzah. To think that the mitzvah, a divine mitzvah, Ratzon Elyon, or Tzorech Elyon, is a byproduct of an event, that's a Rasha. And that's not Exedus HaKosov. That's a terrible, terrible mistake. Because if anything, the one thing we know for sure, every mitzvah is eternal. But the Rasha is saying, how can it be eternal if the reason for it becomes irrelevant? So not every mitzvah is eternal. Only the chukim are eternal. Because they never had a reason, so they can't become invalidated. But any mitzvah that has a reason is not eternal. The Rambam would highly disapprove of this kind of thinking.
And that's why Hake is Shinov, the Shin representing the letter Shin, which represents Sheker, because that's the ultimate lie, that the mitzvahs are based on a reason, or that they're part of creation and not part of Creator.
So really what it's saying is that every mitzvah is essentially a chayk. What is a chayk? A chayk means, this is him. Why? What do you mean, why? An Eibishter is an Eibishter. And an Eibishter wants matzah. That's an Eibishter. So how can you say he doesn't need it? It's like saying he doesn't have to be an Eibishter. And it's a silly question to say, but then he's not perfect. It's like saying the Eibishter is not perfect, there's only one of him. Hey, come on, only one? How perfect is that? The Eibishter is Shabbosdik, and the Eibishter is Pesachdik. Oh, that's a chesron? That's an imperfection in him? In fact, the perfection is that the Eibishter does not change with events. So the Yitzias Mitzrayim did not change him into wanting matzah. He always wanted matzah.
But how can matzah not be part of creation if it's flour and water, which are all... So imagine that's tough for people to wrap their minds around.
That is a very good question. And why is that not spoken of? And why is the answer not given, let's say, in yeshivas in the 4th grade? You're teaching kids about mitzvahs. Shouldn't that be explained? And why is the Eivishter such a neglected subject in yeshiva? So, the first thing is, when you say, does the Eibishter need? Need what? Okay. So there are two parts to the question. Does he need a mitzvah? He is the mitzvah. Hu retzaynai echad. He's not made up of parts, and he didn't invent himself. He is the mitzvah, and the mitzvah is him. Kul echad. Now the question is, what does that have to do with creation? Or in simple words, why do we do the mitzvah if it's him? So, firstly, we now understand when we do a mitzvah, what effect does it have on us? We become him. We become nisached with him. So the result is that Yisrael eiraisa v'kudsha bricha kul echad. Why does that happen? Because the Torah is him. The mitzvah is him. When I do a mitzvah, I am becoming godly. So the Eibishter gave us the mitzvah so that we can become godly. But why does the mitzvah make us godly if he doesn't need it? If the mitzvah is not him, how do I become him when I do a mitzvah? So the statement, Lo nitnu hamitzvahs elo l'tzarif behemes habris, means, how do we become nitzarif? How do we become purified when we do a mitzvah? Because the mitzvah is not part of creation. It's not an invention. It's him. If you devote yourself to a mitzvah, you become the mitzvah. So you become him. So now let's deal with the second question. Why do we do mitzvahs? Why is nitnu ha-mitzvahs? Ilu keraftanu lefnei har Sinai v'loi nosan lonu es ha-Torah. Dayenu? For what? For taking us out of Mitzrayim, we already said that. What does kervonu lefnei har Sinai v'loi nosan lonu es ha-Torah mean? If he let us get to see him, hear him, and know him at Har Sinai without giving us his mitzvahs, that would be amazing. Dayenu. Just to get to know that the mitzvah is him is a huge gift. Dayenu. Not only did he let us know that the mitzvah is him, now he gives us the Torah, nitnu ha-mitzvahs, right? Nesinas ha-Torah, matan Torah, that we can actually become the mitzvah and thereby become him. So, We've established that he needs the mitzvah because he is the mitzvah. Now the question is, does he need us? Need us for what? Well, does he need us to do the mitzvah? So when he gives us the mitzvah, and we are creations, we are with finite chushim, we need a reason, a tam, which really means a taste. Tamu ru'u. We need to be able to taste the mitzvah even as human beings. So the Eibishter gives us a tam. But that's like the capsule on the medicine, right? You got to swallow the medicine. But in order to swallow the medicine properly, it's put into a capsule. But without the capsule, it's even stronger. Maybe a little too strong for you to swallow. So every mitzvah is him, but he gives it to us in a fashion that we can tolerate, we can ingest it, we can internalize it through its ta'am. Does he need us? I think it's pretty clear he needs us to do the mitzvah. But does he need us? He needs us to do the mitzvah, so we do the mitzvah. So he'll reward us and thank us very much and gegesen today. Thank you, I got the mitzvahs I wanted from you, and here's a reward, and see you later. No. What he really wants is to become united, to become echad. So really what he wants is us. V'atem tihiyu li. And that's why all the Nevi'im say, did Eibishter ask you for karbonos? What do you think, he wants karbonos? Well, yeah. It's a whole chumash full of karbonos. What the Navi is saying, he doesn't want you to bring an animal and go home. He wants the carbon to connect you to Hashem. Because he doesn't want the animal, he wants you. Every mitzvah brings you closer to him. So does he want the mitzvah, does he want you? You're frum, you want your kids to be frum. Because you want more frum or because you want your kids? This is crucial. If the children get the impression that all you want is more frum, they're going to rebel and they're going to hate you. If they hear and feel, no, you want them to be close with you. So when you're sitting by a Shabbos table, you want your children with you. Not because you want more Shabbos, but because you want your kids. The Eibishter wants us to be his. V'atem tihiyu li. Through the mitzvah. So now, does he need us? So, what does it mean? Ata b'chartonu mikol ha'amim. If he needs us, why is he comparing us to other nations? As if it could have been somebody else? Can't be somebody else. The world was created through the blueprint of Torah. And the Torah says that Avraham was special. Hashem promised that his children would be the Am Segula. So there was no other option. So what does it mean that David to offer the Torah to other nations? So look it up and find a pirush, but don't destroy everything because you can't imagine how great the Torah is.
It says Yisrael Arasim Kucho Bichu Kolachat. Kuchabricha, as we know, is not going on the deepest level of God, right? That's pushback I get all the time on that. Yeah, there's a certain level of God which is one with the Torah and the Jew, but that's only the level of Kuchabricha.
It's so embarrassing how shallow people's questions are. If the mitzvah is not him, and if we are not him, but on some lower level we get connected, then we'll never be echad. It's an artificial connection that didn't exist until yesterday. All of a sudden we're connected. That's called echad. And the same would say, he wanted it, and now that he wants it, it's necessary. Something doesn't become necessary after not being necessary. In the true sense of the word. Something can't become essential. Essential means it is the essence. It can't become the essence. That's so foolish. So if it's echad, it has to be at the highest level before there is anything unnatural or created or manufactured. So the thinking that the Eibishter is involved in the lowest levels, but the highest levels of him really is detached. It's horrible. It's horrible. The real him doesn't need, so the Torah is not real. Well, that's.
But this perspective that we're sharing is based on pretty much only Chabad Chassidus.
Not based on any quotes. I'm trying to present the unavoidable aspect of it. Don't debate a pasuk or a quote because if it's debatable, then it's not good anymore. If you need a raya from a pasuk, it's no good. Then the Eibishter is a product of Torah, or is Torah him?
Right, I'm saying, but this perspective that you're trying to share with the world, and they said many rabbis don't agree or understand it the same way.
There is no rabbi who knows anything that disagrees. You can't disagree without destroying Torah. So, really, it's embarrassing that this is even a discussion. It's like, is Torah true? Let's talk about it. There are shittas about it. No, there are not shittas about it. Torah is emes. La'olam u'la'ol me'olamim. That's our starting point. Not a debatable issue. So when people say, where does it say that? Where does it say that the Eibishter is real? And if it says that makes him real? This is very sad. Okay, so first of all, it's now become clear that saying that the Eibishter needs a mitzvah is not apicursus. like that's way off track. So, people have to start rethinking and learning what is the Eibishter and what is Torah and what is a Jew. Because it's getting to be so shallow.
So when Tanya teaches that a Jew is literally a piece of God, that was a radical statement that Tanya revealed, that the Alter Rebbe revealed. So that was a new sort of deeper insight into what a Jew is.
Right, so that's also a very sad development. 250 years ago, The Alter Rebbe had to convince people that when it says that there's a Nefesh Elokis, the Alter Rebbe has to tell you it's mamish real. What were you thinking? It's not mamish real? Nothing is mamish real? It's all made up, it's all a game, it's all a... What is that? Where was that coming from? Why does the Alter Rebbe, so late in the game, in history, have to tell you that Avas Yisrael means every Jew mamish? What were people thinking? Is it every Jew mamish? Maybe not. If it's not every Jew, then it's no Jew. If you don't love every Jew, you don't love a single Jew. You're loving something about them. But if you love the Jew, well, then all Jews are Jewish. Not all Jews are tzaddikim. So does it say to love tzaddikim or does it say to love Jews? The Alter Rebbe had to remind people that it's mamish. I mean, we're talking in a time when people were mamish, big lumdim, and everybody was frum. Okay, they were starting to assimilate a little bit with the Enlightenment. But the Alter Rebbe was talking to the greatest lumdim and the greatest Talmidei Chachamim, and he had to tell them it's mamish. And we're still not convinced that it's mamish. Yes, it's mamish. Let's do this again. In the beginning, whatever that means, right? At the highest level, there's only an essential being called Eibishter. How do you go from essential to non-essential? Like all of a sudden he woke up and what? And then you have the issue of Aniyah violation Nisi. Nothing changed? There was a time when he didn't want the mitzvah, then something happened, and now he wants the mitzvah. Nothing changed? You have to really be a genius to understand that you don't go from essential to non-essential. I said to an 11-year-old, the Eibishter needs your mitzvah. He said, he doesn't need, he just wants. I said, the Eibishter wants what he doesn't need. And the 11-year-old said, oh, right, no, that makes sense. And yet here you have grown-ups who supposedly know something, and they're all comfortable with the idea that he needs it, that he wants it, but he doesn't really need it. So he wants what he doesn't need, which is already frivolous and silly, but not only that, he wants you to die for it. And then you ask me, where does it say?
So you're saying those people are not to blame, that have the other perspective? You are saying that they are to blame.
I don't know where it came from, who caused it, how it started, how it became legitimate. I don't think it is legitimate, by the way.
No, I always thought that's why Chassidus has to spread, and the Mashiach told Baal Shem Tov that when your wellspring spread, when everyone gets this point about how the mitzvah is literally me and how much I need it, how much I need you, then people will be able to serve Hashem the right way, and then they'll bring in Mashiach. So obviously, if some guy grew up in Lakewood or is Litvish, and he's just never been exposed to Tanya or Chassidus, and then you ask him this question, and he'll obviously have a different answer or the opposite answer, because if he would have learned this, he would have had the right answer. And now we're coming and saying, "Oh, this is the right answer," because we've obviously been brought up with Chassidus and Tanya. So, like, what do you expect from the poor guy? But it seems to be saying now that you're saying it has nothing to do really with any sources or any text. This is just plain basic, simple logic. That, and of course, there's sources on the other side, like the Rambam, that God has no needs, and you have to start picking that apart. But you're saying it has nothing to do with Chabad Chassidus?
It has to do with Berchu B'Torah Tchila. Before you can sit down to learn Torah, you have to know whose Torah it is. And if you're not sure whose Torah it is, then I don't know what the learning is about. It becomes a churban. Look, if a kid asks you, a yeshiva bacher, a bright yeshiva bacher, says, why do I need to do this? Why do I need to do this? What if I don't do it? What do you say? It's the most fundamental, obvious, basic question. What if I don't keep Shabbos? What is the answer?
Imagine people on the other side would say you're missing out, and there's so much meaning, and it adds so much significance to your whole week.
It will enrich your life. So, what is the Mishnah not to do it for the reward? And if you're doing it because it enriches your life, how is that Avodas Hashem? How do you move past? I mean, that's like first base. You haven't gotten to first base. Every intelligent kid is going to ask you, why? What if I don't? What are you going to say? Other than schar and einish, which you're not supposed to say. So that's it. You're finished. And you haven't gotten to first base. And then you have to ask yourself, why do you do it? To become a gadol? To be a shas yid?
But something's working, obviously, as we speak. There are people running matzahs and cleaning houses meticulously. And obviously, they're being motivated from...
Yeah. So there are three possibilities. One is you do a mitzvah lishma. The other one is you do a mitzvah without really thinking much. So it's not lishma. It's not shaloi lishma. Then there's the third, which is shaloi lishma. If you're doing it for the reward, that is shaloi lishma, the third level. If you're doing it because you didn't really stop to think, that's the middle level. If you do it lishma, that's the best, right? So, if you don't know why you're doing it, and you do it anyway, that's a lot better than coming up with the wrong reason to do it. Because then it's a definite shaloi lishma. To keep telling people, do the mitzvah because it's good for you, that's a shaloi lishma that will not bring to lishma. The shaloi lishma that brings lishma means you didn't do it l'shem shamayim, but you didn't do it for any other reason. You don't have an other God. So would anybody say, yeah, you should worship an idol because, shaloi lishma ba lishma. At least you're worshiping. So you worship, you'll correct it later. No, that doesn't bring lishma. So if you're doing it as self-serving, that is not going to eventually become selfless. Selfishness does not lead to selflessness. So what will you tell a child who asks, why do I need to do this? You say, you're doing it for Hashem. Yeah, he doesn't need it. Well, do it for him anyway. It doesn't make any sense whatsoever. We're supposed to be the smartest people in the world.